The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus told his disciples a parable. Can a blind person guide a blind person? Will not both fall into a pit? No disciple is superior to the teacher. When fully trained, every disciple will be like his teacher. Why do you notice the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the wooden beam in your own? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me remove that splinter in your eye," when you do not even notice the wooden beam in your own eye? You hypocrites, remove the wooden beam from your eye first. Then you will see clearly to remove the splinter in your brother's eye. A good tree does not bear rotten fruit, nor does a rotten tree bear good fruit. For every tree is known by its own fruit. For people do not pick figs from thorn bushes, nor do they gather grapes from brambles. A good person out of the store of goodness in his heart produces good, but an evil person out of a store of evil produces evil. For from the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Hypocrite. Hypocrite. That's what Jesus is saying to the religious leadership at his time. Hypocrite. They are not authentic. They are not true to the law. They are not true to the spirit of the law. Hypocrite. Hypocritus is a Greek word which means a mask, wearing a mask, being an actor, playing a role, being in a play. It's not real, it's pretend, but you look really good. Scholars say that Jesus and Joseph very likely worked in Sepphoris, which was a city not far from Nazareth, within walking distance, because they would have found a lot of work there as carpenters and stonemason and doing metal work. And there's a large theater at Sepphoris that Jesus might have been familiar with. Maybe he was familiar with some of the actors. Maybe he went to a play. We don't know. But hypocrite is a theatrical term. It has to do with playing a role, pretending, going through the motions. And so he's confronting the leadership with that statement. But he's cautioning people to be careful of the fruit that other people produce. Good trees produce good fruit. Bad trees produce bad fruit. The last couple of Sundays, I've encouraged that we pay attention to what people are doing, not so much listening to what they're saying. They say good things and then do the opposite. In the first reading, Sirach takes that one step backwards. He's talking about people they haven't even said anything yet. But he said to praise no one until they speak, because you don't know what's inside of them until they start talking. So withhold an assessment until you hear them speak. We are called then to be careful of who it is that we listen to. Are we listening to the hypocrites? Are we listening to the actors? We listen to the people who are just going through the motions, but they don't mean it. It's not authentic. So it's very important as Christians to be discerning and to be careful on what we are discerning and paying attention to. In this world, we can have blind people leading the blind, not literally, but people who are morally corrupt, people who are just going through the motions. They can look good, but they're not real. They're fooling us. And so it's important for us to see them clearly. Jesus uses this metaphor of the splinter and the beam, talking about someone being critical of someone because they have a splinter in their eye, but what they're not paying attention to is the beam in their own eye, that they have a much larger issue than the person that they're criticizing. Jesus is addressing that to the religious leadership because they were not following the law in the spirit of the law. They were being picky, worrying about little items, being hard on the people, oppressing them with all of these demands. We've spoken before about Rabbi Hillel, who summarized the law in love your God and love your neighbor as yourself. That's the whole law. The rest is commentary. And so by thinking of that, it's the spirit of the law that was important. Religious leadership were not paying attention to the spirit. In fact, they were being oppressive to people and cruel to them, demeaning them and judging them. But Jesus is saying, first, take care of the beam in your eye. What's the issue that we may be struggling with? What's something that we want to be critical of other people? We know what it is that we're experiencing and being totally unaware of it. It's a truism, I think, of human relationship that we have the most trouble dealing with people who are like us because we see ourselves in them, not in a good way, but things that we do not like about ourselves, but when we see them in other people, now we don't like them, and we can be critical and hostile towards them. And so it's important that we listen to Jesus and take care of whatever the beam is in our eye. What are we seeing? What's keeping us from seeing the truth? Are we really seeing people how they really are? Are we just seeing the acting? We're just seeing the hypocrites, the make-believe, or are we seeing the reality? And so it's important that whatever beam we have in our eye, it might be assumptions, ideology, beliefs, that really blind us to the reality that's right in front of us. And so it's important that we remove that beam so that we can see clearly, and then we can help other people. We don't interact with them through the issues that we have, but we interact with them, helping them with their issues, and now that we can see clearly and don't have our beam anymore. And so in this world, it's important that we see people as they really are, not as they pretend to be. We are on the brink of Lent. Ash Wednesday is this Wednesday, and we will begin that journey. But it gives us an opportunity during these next 40 days to reflect upon, are we really seeing people as they really are? Are we listening to them? Are we paying attention to what they're saying? Are we discerning their authenticity? Or are we allowing ourselves to be fooled by a bunch of actors, people who don't mean what they claim and then doing the opposite? So it's important that we see it clearly in this Lent. We can work on what is the beam in our eye, what's keeping us from seeing reality, and asking the Lord to help us through the prayer and fasting, and that we are able to begin to see things clearly in this world and not be fooled, and that we can tell the difference between someone who is a good tree producing good fruit and a bad tree which is producing bad fruit.